Hi everyone and welcome to the next session on crime and punishment through time. So, last week I asked you to start looking at the later medieval period, and I gave you this document here and I asked you to go through and read in quite a lot of detail and to highlight any of the changes that you could find that were being made by King Henry II. Once you'd done that, I asked you to complete the chart where you were looking at the changes, but in particular you were trying to understand the reasons behind them. In other words, the factors for change. And clearly that was making things a step harder for you to understand the reasons behind the changes that he made. So, what you should have discovered is that Henry II brought about 4 key changes. First of all, in terms of law enforcement, there was a problem because in this period, more and more people were moving into the towns and cities like London and York, and it made being a criminal an awful lot easier because you could commit a crime, nobody knew who you were, and you could easily hide in that large population. And so Henry had to do something about that, and what he did was centralise the system of law enforcement. In other words, government officials are now being used to catch criminals rather than the traditional systems that you've seen before. Having said that, there were still some Anglo-Saxon methods left behind. For example, the tithings, the man who'd been in charge of each tithing was known as a tithing man, and in fact they just changed their job title to become known as constables, which is a name that we would recognise today. Secondly, we have some new laws. The first law is the Statute of Labourers, and that's a law that makes it a crime to ask for higher wages. Quite a sad law, but it was on the back of the Black Death and the fact that lots of peasants were asking for higher wages in response to what was a pandemic and a crisis. And secondly, a new crime of heresy is introduced. Now, heresy is when your religion, your faith, is different from that of the country in which you're living. So at this time, the 13th and 14th century, it was the Catholic faith, but we were just starting to see other faiths coming into England, in particular the Protestant faith, which is still a branch of Christianity, but slightly different. Now, the punishment for this one is very harsh, and if you were found to be a heretic, in other words guilty of heresy, then you would be killed by being burned to death. Okay, so not a nice one. In terms of maintaining law and order then, we have 2 new jobs that were introduced. First of all, we've got the coroners, and a coroner, even today, is somebody who has to investigate any death that was suspicious. And secondly, we have the justices of the peace. Now, this is something that was around a little bit earlier as well, and they tended to be the wealthy men, the powerful men in each local area who were responsible for maintaining law and order. Okay, and finally, punishments. Punishments are pretty much the same. So you can see there we've still got fines, we've still got corporal punishments, so that's hurting someone but not killing them. We've still got executions, but we do have a slight change. The crime of high treason had been around for a long time, and treason of course is betraying the king, but now we've got a new way of punishing them, a particularly horrible one, and that is to be hanged, drawn and quartered, and then the 4 parts of your body, once you'd been quartered, would be displayed around the town as a warning to anybody else who was thinking of being a traitor. So, using that information, this week I would like you to prove to me that you know and understand that information. Your task is the 7 questions you can see on the board there, and they're all based on the learning that you did last week. All I'd like you to do, please, for each question is to ensure that you write in detail and that you include, where you can, as much specific factual detail as possible. Okay, thank you very much, enjoy, and I'll see you next week.